Hello.
Hey, George. Hey, everyone.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hello, fellow Aries V6 developers. Okay, I think we can get started. Not sure if Nyan's joining. Maybe not
We
today.
add Innocence Autopilot to the maintainers list.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. We should do that. All right, welcome to August 14th, 2023, Aries V6 community call. And Hyperledger antitrust policy is in effect as it's displayed on a screen. And let's just go ahead to our agenda. There's not too much stuff, I think. Might be one of the faster ones, but you never know. Right. So is there anything you would like to guys add to the agenda? Anything you'd like to discuss or modify? I guess we are good then. This is leftover from the last week. Hi Nan. We have a Nan just joining the call. Welcome. We have this leftover item here from the last week. So maybe just reminder. So there's a DIF call, DITCOM call. Was I guess this Monday. I didn't attend myself, but it's gonna be another one the next Monday and the fourth Monday of this month as well. There was Aries work group call yesterday. I attended. Mostly talked about the did peer, the did exchange / did peer community coordination plan, and about adjustments which were did to regarding signing connection requests. So I think this is quite relevant to. I think Miro definitely had a questions mark there, and Jakub from APSA he had this ancient 2-year issue. So that essentially continued to be discussed on the meeting. There was a proposal how to go about it, adding some decorator to sign a DIT in case that the DIT has been rotated in the connection response. Yeah, sorry, I think I messed it up before. In the connection response. So if the inviter rotates their key, from my understanding, they shall sign the new DIT essentially. Yeah, there's more info on the call and the recording, but just briefly, I also gave an update as to what we've been doing recently, where Aries VC exists and where we are heading. Would like to start doing this more regularly, and actually other projects kind of followed as well, and gave kind of nice updates about what they're up to. So it gave a nice overview. Anyone else attended any other meetings this week?
Not a meeting, but maybe a community update that might be helpful. It was last week, but I wasn't in the call last week. But I put in a PR in Indy Shared RS to loosen one of the dependencies, along with just general conversation amongst the Aries crates about loosening dependencies or trying to make the dependencies more compatible with one another. And then that PR went through, and then there was some other chat. But I think with that PR through, it should make Indie VDR, which consumes Indie Shared RS, compatible with things like ASCAR and non-creds RS, which I think means that it would be possible to pull in ASCAR into the Aries VCX suite within the workspace, at least in theory.
That sounds
So I
great.
guess, yeah, that's a good community update. Some good
Yeah,
news.
yeah. It's a great initiative as well that you created the issue, and I saw that I didn't follow it in detail, but I saw that the discussion definitely spurred out from your issue, and something is happening there. So that's really good.
Yeah. Hopefully it makes our lives easier with dependency.
Yeah,
Lock.
Nayan could talk about this. She recently ran into this dependency. Well, maybe before that, so already transitioning to the project one. So that's a good update, George. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else by chance by someone in terms of kind of call attendance or community news you catched on over the past week? All right. I guess that's it. Nan, we have you on the call. That's good. I was just we were just mentioning this. George very well knows the type of issue you were also running into with the dependency conflicts recently when you are trying to, I think, add the mediator project into the workspace, and it didn't really work because of libc version conflicts. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Uh, it was, I think, because of SQLX, and then SQLX dependent on something else. So yeah, a transitive dependency.
Yeah. So maybe it'll be easier after these things are changed. I'm not sure. Maybe this particular change, it's more of an indie VDR library. I think the conflict here was elsewhere. But anyway, have you managed to get over your hurdles, and do you have any updates on the project?
Oh yes. So I have been able to finally resolve the dependency conflicts. So the solution was basically that whenever I'm adding something to Aries BCX, I need to reduce the version of whichever library I'm using to match that of Aries BCX. So that, I think, solves the whole problem. So the problem is, I think Aries BCX has some libraries fixed at some particular versions, and when using, like, say, mediator with a higher version of the library, then the transitive dependencies, they clash because someone else has a minimum requirement for the version. So yeah, so just reducing the version that I'm using in my work, that does resolve the conflicts most of the time. So for now, that's being a okay solution. Regarding the mediator side, actually do have updates. So I was a bit unwell for the last few weeks, so it has been a bit slow there. But now steady progress is resuming. Uh, if you noticed in the Aries VCX repo, I recently added a new branch, the mediator branch, and there's also a PR waiting there, so you can take a look. Uh, yeah, the initial mediator work.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. So that's basically migrated the repo, the Exum test server into Aries VCX, right? I guess it's just kind of a copy.
No. This is not that. What I've done is I'm starting fresh now. So I will be copying the core of the mediator from the Axum test repo, but
Uh-huh.
this is like starting the agent side of the mediator first, like trying to build a framework for it, and then I'll transplant the individual functions of the mediator to this. So this is trying to create the skeleton structure of how the agent side of the mediator, that's the AD side of the mediator, is going to talk to other agents. So at first in this, I have created the OOB request, the out of band request uh, feature. So basically,
Mhm.
if you go to an endpoint, so you run the mediator and then go to its endpoint, it'll show a QR with the out of band invitation, and then you should be able to use any Aries agent to connect to it. Now, at this stage, you can't really connect because uh, the connection part is yet to be done. So we had
Mhm.
discussed this earlier that some useful methods on the invitation state machine would be helpful for this, because the state machine, I think, assumes that the Aries peer is going to have a service endpoint of their own. But
Yeah,
for
yeah.
clients that we are going to use, that won't be the case. So to reply in the same HTTP response, we'll need some methods to just create the response message so that this agent can handle the response itself, the transport. So yeah, when that happens, the connection should be possible. Right now, it does produce a QR code, so I can show a little demo maybe.
Oh yeah, sure. You can go ahead. I'll stop sharing.
Okay, so this is the mediator, and currently this is how you run it. Uh, so this cargo run binary mediator. So I've divided into two crates currently. I have the main crate which is going to have the mediator, and there's a second crate client. So I'm trying to separate the core mediator and a test client into two separate crates. Uh,
Mhm.
it's going to depend on the common code base, which is in lib, but it's just the interface for both of them. Like the binary that they create will be separate. So you could perhaps run the client when you want separately from the mediator. So this is how I run the mediator: cargo run bin mediator. Simple. It opens up an endpoint here. So let's go to that point. Okay. So it says please refer to API section, because yeah, this is just the root endpoint. But right now, what feature has been implemented is register. So if some new client wants to register on a mediator, they'll go to this place and they'll get a QR code with an out of band invitation. So this is happening right now using Aries BCX. It's creating a new out of band invitation and presenting it. So here we have this. You can scan it, and then uh, a good functioning Aries agent should be able to send it a connection request. So I have implemented that also. So I have my clients here. So let's see. Uh, just a minute. So I can copy this invitation, let's say, and so I have another instance of this thing running at port 3000. So let's assume that this is going to be our client. Okay. So the client endpoints are under the slash client. And so I want to ask my Aries client to, hey, please take this invitation and try to connect to the server. And it does that. So it creates the requisite connection request and sends it to the server. Okay, we have a problem here. Oh, needs to be a first.
Is it a correct address that you have client/register? Isn't it just /register?
No, the register is for the mediator registration. That's we are asking the mediator to, hey, I want to register. This is my client. So what I've done is
Okay.
I've created separate routes for the client side. Yeah, routes. I've disabled it. Okay, I think it won't be seen in this current PR. It's in the next PR, which is also uh, right.
Is
I have disabled.
the client also gonna be a server?
So right now, for testing purposes, I am creating the client as a local server. So you can basically use HTTP methods to communicate with the client, to instruct it to do some things. So, for example, this example that I showed just now, you could just ask, hey client, here's an OOB message, please register with the mediator. And it will try to do the stuff, and then it'll give you a response. Was it successful? Was it not? It'll give you the response. So perhaps someone else could create a front end to this, and we have a kind of functioning client agent also.
Right. So it seems like there's some like kind of a demo issue, right? Something's there's some issue with the sending the message.
Yes. So I have in the PRs I sent. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. Right. So in the PRs I sent, the second PR, it deals with the client side of the code. And it looks like I have actually removed the client endpoint, the /client/register from the code for a bit. It was working yesterday. I removed it for some reason because I'm trying to separate it into its own crate. So I just removed it for a bit. But yes, if you do that, uh, I'll show you the methods of what it does. Yes. Oh, okay. Just share my screen once again.
All right.
Okay, so here's what it's supposed to do. So when I do that /client/register and give it an OOB message, the handler is going to deserialize that into an OOB invitation. So here we have JSON OOB invitation. It's going to deserialize that. And then it's going to take that OOB invite and create invite requested. That's the invitee requested state from Aries VCX. And then we are going to convert that into JSON and then send it using simple HTTP request library to the mediator. So then the mediator should respond with its yes, connection accepted response. So right now that doesn't happen. Right now what happens is the mediator doesn't understand a connection request. So it's going to give a 4 or 5, and then this will panic and the client will say, sorry, couldn't connect to the mediator. So that's what it's supposed to do right now. Yeah.
Right. So we are in a stage where now we are kind of waiting for the update on the connection side, right? So you could actually generate the response.
Yes. So the mediator server could generate a response, and then this connection could complete. Yes.
All right. We should hurry up with that so you get unblocked. All right. Well, thank you for the demo. Although couldn't demo it fully, but I understand that's a typical demo issues. Usually happens whenever you try to demo something. Anyone ever. Things just stop working, even though they worked the night before. I think you can stop sharing and we'll move forward. Thank you
Hey,
for
no, and that's really cool. Just a question. The client as a server idea, that's just for demonstration purposes, right? And that's just sort of the medium or platform that you preferred to do it through.
Yes.
Is that right?
So since I was creating the server, the actual mediator server in Axum, I thought instead of writing code every time for checking something, like for this connection request, instead of writing code and running it, why not just create a server that like I can just do a post request rather than cargo run each and every time. So I mean, it's alive there. The state is maintained, and I can just push some buttons and ask the client side to do some stuff. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because like in theory, you could have done it anyway, right? Like it could have been like a CLI application.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it could have been a CLI. The thing with CLI, the problem would be like, how do I now give it an OOB invite? So let's say I get an OOB invite from the mediator. Now in CLI, I would have to paste that whole JSON on a single line. Like uh, the usability of that would have been a bit not ergonomic, basically. So
Mm.
like I think this method just makes it a bit more nicer. Like using Thunder Client, I get these simple like fields. Like I can just put some JSON there and ask it to do something from there. So yeah, that becomes a bit convenient.
Cool. That makes sense. One more question. When you went to that register endpoint and got the invitation,
Mhm.
do you get a new unique invitation every time you go to register, or is it the same?
Yes, you get a new invitation. The ID changes, but the key is the same. So it's a public invitation. So the recipient key is going to be the same, but the ID of the invitation does change.
Okay. I was wondering because implementations I've seen, they just create like one invitation and then they publicly post that invitation to all their users and
Mhm.
say this is what you use. Um, do you know if we're trying to support that, like a multi-use invitation?
Uh, I think the current implementation doesn't forbid multi-use. Like I don't have any thing in the code that says that if this ID is being used twice, then don't allow them to register. So that's not there. But by
Mhm.
default, whenever you ask for a new registration, it it runs the OOB like using Aries BCX. It tries to create a new invitation each time, but the
Mhm.
service is the same. So the service part of the invitation is going to be the same. The only thing that changes is the ID for now. So you could possibly distinguish your different clients by the ID, like the different. If someone else registers, then you could distinguish them using the ID of the connection. So that's a possibility. But of
Mm.
course, if they share a static screenshot of the invitation to someone else, then yes, you could have two people joining with the same request. So right now it does change, but there's no requirement for the clients to use a unique uh, invite.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. It almost sounds like you could have like two configurations for the mediator. One where it's just a fully public mediator where you just share one invitation with the world and then everyone can use it, which is similar
Mhm.
to what I've seen be done in AFJ, for example. They hard code in a mediator invitation. But then you could also configure it to do more like private invitations where the mediator has to explicitly give someone the invitation out
Yes.
of band, however they do it. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Thanks.
you could possibly even add a payment. Let's say you want to charge for the mediator. So give me $2 and I will send you an OB invite, which will be valid only for one use and then it'll expire. So you could do that right now with the current state. Yes.
Cool. Yeah, and then you could like identify the user based off who replied to that invitation ID. Yeah, that's
Yes.
cool. Cool. Thanks for the info.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nayan. Let's am I sharing screen? I'm not sharing screen. So yeah, let's go further. Unify. We don't have Swapnil here. George, any a brief update how things are going?
Yeah, it's going very well. Swapnil's moving faster than I can review, which is great. But yeah, the status is that he has a review up for the sample app to basically walk through the whole connection flow.
Nice.
It's not cleaned up, but we're going to work on that next. Yeah, so I just need to review that, and yeah.
How's so that's the connection protocol that is coming, that is yet coming, right? And that's the PR. And currently, the current kind of state is that it builds the app, it runs it, and it can scan the QR codes, right? Because we merged the QR code scanning last week, I think, or this week.
Yeah. In master or in main, it's up to the point where it'll send off the request, but doesn't wait for the response or anything.
Right. Maybe one feedback I'll need to give to Swapnil, and perhaps it just I'm not sure if it's just my ignorance or if there's something missing, but it would be nice to have kind of a tutorial, just like a brief step of sequence of steps. What do I need to do to build it? Oh well, I guess I run these scripts over here, but it's still kind of I guess I need also like Android Studio and these kind of things to actually have it running on my phone, right? Kind of like instructions for somebody who's not doing the mobile development usually. I have Android phone, but how do I get this thing on my phone?
Yes, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I'll get in touch with Swapnil if we can add something like that. I would really like to try it out, especially with the connection protocol. Looking forward.
Cool.
All right, thanks. Well, back to the overview. Back already forward to the overview. So we had significantly message builders from Bogdan, which has earned you 3 rockets, Bogdan. That's quite nice, competing with SpaceX. Any comments on I don't know, your experience working on this, or any insights?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess so maybe like this was sort of maybe let's call it the first step. It doesn't necessarily mean that things have to remain in the state that they are. There were some decisions that I kind of had to make, for instance, and I try to describe them in the description there, but I don't know, things like having consistency among builders and among messages, and like even if you have some protocol specific content that really just has one field, and having a builder for it, which is not optional, and having a builder for it seems like an overkill. On the other hand, it will be consistent with all the other messages, and that might bring a sense of familiarity. Like you don't have to think, hey, how is this message being built? You know that you always have a builder for it. So I thought that might be the better way to go about it. The builders were added for like inner structures of messages too, like attachments and stuff like that, where it seemed like it is applicable. If a certain type has like only 2 fields and none of them are optional, the builder might have been an overkill in that instance. And since it's not like a top level thing, a top level message, and you need to figure out how to build that. I figured that then like a constructor method might be appropriate, I guess. Yeah, apart from that, so this relies on the type builder crate, which was really like it exceeded my expectations in terms of the functionalities that it provided. The only thing that I kind of had to tweak around was the message part structure builder, because some structures might have decorators, some might not, and kind of wanted to make it easier to build stuff, especially taking advantage of the compile time guarantees that the builders provide since they're implementing through the type state pattern. So for instance, if you have a message like an out-of-band handshake, handshake reuse or handshake accepted. I believe those are two messages. These literally don't have any sort of like protocol specific content. They don't carry any data by themselves. The message itself kind of relays the message or the information. Just getting it means something, but there's nothing in it. So these kind of structures are merely there. So you don't even have to build that. For instance, when you want to build a handshake reuse message entirely, you just pass in the ID and the decorators and you're allowed to build that, because the protocol specific content implements default. So it, yeah, basically just short circuited some of the message parts type, which basically is the I guess the combination of the message content, the protocol specific content, and the decorators and the ID. So tweaked it to kind of allow this kind of things. Yeah, other than that, yeah, like I was saying, so this relies on the type builder crate. There's also a derive builder crate, which uses runtime construction like options and stuff like that, and returns an error if you didn't build your message correctly. And like right now, it felt like the typed or the type state builders are better for the fact that they just allow you to confidently build things at compile time and not worry that you're missing out on something. On the other hand, if there's going to be a need for like what I like to call like builder gymnastics and pass builders around while building messages and just dynamically building them in some way, if the process is very convoluted with the builder implementing type state, that means each state is basically different types, so passing them around is just really weird. So you wouldn't want to do that, in which case like the derived builder might be better because it uses a common type. There was also like I was thinking about just writing our own builders from scratch, and that's still a possibility if for some reason, I don't know, we don't like we hit some limitations with type builder that we simply can't get past. But I figured that it would be better to kind of have something working first as some sort of reference point, and there's nothing preventing us from like not deriving the proc macro on some types and just building the builders from scratch. So there's also that option.
Yeah, I mean this is a huge improvement for readability. I think the type builder is like just enough, and there's its benefits. Perhaps if we start doing that kind of like a response generation where the response is being amended in different places with some additional decorators, stuff like that. Maybe then this would be useful, maybe. But yeah, I think for now it suffices what it should achieve.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, so with each message basically being represented by that message part structure, you can technically build the decorators in one place alone. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I really don't know. Technically, the fields of the messages are still public, so you can still amend them if you want to.
Right.
But yeah, I can't tell right now. I guess the derived builder thing, it also kind of boils down to, from a consumer point of view, like someone building an agent with Aries VCX, how much actual message building are they going to do? Like maybe adding a decorator or just changing a field might not be something that necessarily calls for a completely different builder and stuff like that. But if they're actually building messages from scratch and they're doing that a lot, then, and depending on how those are getting built, like I said, if there's some convoluted, runtime logic that dictates how the message is built, then you might want to look into something like the derived builder, or not necessarily using the crate, but as much as that approach of building messages.
Right.
So runtime construction kind of thing. But I honestly don't know. So I guess what kind of
It's
see.
good that we at least have that we have the awareness now. You research this, you know that there is such a thing as Derive Builder and should be apparently fairly replaceable.
Yeah,
for
they
that.
actually.
We are
Future
actually
proofing.
using it.
I don't know how the builder methods work, but they basically use like the Derive Builder crate was first, and then came along the Typed Builder. And one of the goals of Typed Builder was to kind of mimic, maybe not all, like not provide all the functionality that Derive Builder provides, but the functionality that it does provide to be to kind of use the same, you know, macro attributes and stuff like that that Derive Builder is using to basically allow you to just change the Derive macro, and that's it. You still have your builder. And I think you might be able to use both of them. I didn't try. I guess if you want to do that, you still have to kind of differentiate it between the two builder methods, maybe. I don't know. But nevertheless.
Miro,
We are
you're
actually-
saying?
I was just saying that we are actually using the Derive Builder in Aries VCX. Not like using both on a single thread, but we do use it in Aries VCX. Just to point it out, maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe we should just use a single dependency for deriving builders.
Right, that's some of those wallet configurations or something like that, right? The old that we did like 2 years ago or something like that.
Yes, they're using it on credential definition config building, revocation notification config building. Yeah, so it's kind of.
I see. All right, that's also a good comment that we have both, and perhaps we should.
Yeah, maybe one more
Yes.
thing about this. That last paragraph of the description is that previously the invitation, like the connection protocol invitation, because it has kind of 3 forms that you can come in. They were separate instances of like message parts structure with different generics, and that it was like that to kind of allow each invitation type to have its own decorators, but and by that I mean that the public invitation had no decorators. It just wasn't like that. But then the timing decorator that's in the pairwise invitation is basically just an addition that we did. So I figured that it was kind of complicating things a lot. So instead of having the enum on top of message parts instances like complete messages, the enum is actually on top of the protocol specific content, and then the decorators are the same, and that allows for like easier reasoning with the invitation.
Yeah,
And since it's old, then probably it's not going to change, but I think that's fine.
It did look like a simplification as well around the
Yes.
connections and the delta I reviewed. All right, thank you, Bogdan, for sharing this all the learnings and insights. Then we had test refactoring. This is also huge. It was 2 parts done by Miro, and especially I want to like highlight the fact that it's this is removing the agency client in tests. So correct me if I'm wrong, Miro, but I think people don't no longer need to run VCX agency node to execute the integration tests. Is that right?
That is correct. But it still does run in CI. I forgot to remove it as part of the PR. But I tried removing it, and the test still passed without it. So yeah, VCX agency nodes is no longer necessary for Rust-based integration tests.
Nice. And this removed what 4,000 more than 6,000 lines of code. Well, added some 3K, but it's still minus 3K or so. So that's amazing. And with this dependency trimmed off, it's gonna be a lot easier for people to just try and run some tests to get started. I think this is a huge improvement. Also in terms of readability, of course, but also for the onboarding itself. I don't know, any and I know that you have like plans, you're far from satisfied, so like and you're continuing on kind of reworking the tests. What's your current plan, approach, or thoughts on it?
Well, um, well, like there is of course temptation to try to improve integration tests runtime. I know that last time we spoke about it, there was quite a bit of eagerness on your side, but although I agree that runtime is concerned, I am not focusing on that right now. I think that still the biggest issue is that integration tests are like not very readable, and unit tests are pretty much non-existent. So I am trying to right now let's say improve the readability of the code of the tests, remove duplication in the code that, or the test details code that the tests are using, and also try to reuse data which the tests are using wherever possible, instead of making custom test data on the fly. I would like to make them reuse data wherever possible and code as well. So this entails things like splitting the huge good methods which are returning 12-value tuples, which are then reused subsequently everywhere across all tests to make them to split them to make them more reusable, and remove the scenarios which are also I want to remove the scenarios which are like also duplicating our test scenarios, or join them, or also
So
I think that some integration tests could be made into unit tests as well, given what they are testing, but that would require changes to the implementation of the unit on the test, let's say, as well. But yeah, that would require a large investment. And I also think that the integration tests, which are scattered across the entire code base on thread/integration tests, should be moved into tests folder, where I think the integration tests belong. And yeah.
It's a lot of stuff pending yet. I take it that some huge deltas are still gonna be coming.
Yeah.
Well, finally we have time. I mean, yeah, we dedicated capacity to kind of look into this. This was long overdue. So it's a lot of shoveling and stuff, and
yeah, it's not. It's the test code is not the best, really. It's a huge pile of spaghetti mess, actually. So yeah, it's a lot of work.
Well, that's what we do, right? So we have a good the trajectory is looking great. So if we're gonna get part 3, we're just gonna be like as good as part 1 and part 2, then it's gonna be a huge improvement. moving on, the UniFi demo QR scanning, yeah, that was merged and we kind of touched down on that. So the UniFi demo app can now scan QR codes.
Sorry, I just got a
Mhm.
quick question. Does Aries VCX still depend on the agency client crate?
If Aries VCX depends on agency client,
Yeah, is that still it?
so technically, yeah, because the mediated connection is still part of Aries V6 codebase that is using
Right.
agency client. But what
Yeah.
we could do to kind of trim it out, so but it's not used in tests anymore. So it just kind of sits there almost like a dead code. But we are still, the thing is, the mediated connection is still being used by Node.js tests.
Hmm.
So we kind of would need to get rid of that. Definitely possible, and want to do it. We want to get rid of all this agency stuff. But for now, I'm thinking, the agency client itself is adding dependencies for essentially anyone who's want to use Aries V6, but is not interested in mediated connections, which is pretty much everyone, other than the VCX, crate itself. Node.js wrapper code base. So maybe we could feature flag the mediated connection with the agency client dependency. So then you could just opt out from it. It's just like additional code. You can bring it if you want to. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I'm not opposed to that. Yeah.
I guess you would prefer to opt out from that, right? In your use case.
Yeah, for sure. But I think maybe I'm misquoting, but I think we had talk a while ago about trying to avoid having lots of feature flags, but I don't know, maybe this is a
Yeah,
problem.
true.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like this is the actual the right use case for feature flags, because this feels like it's really just kind of feature addition, like features are supposed to be. It's adding some extra code. It's unlike many other feature flag which we're using to swap out functionalities under the
Yes.
hood or
Yeah.
drive the testing. But this is actually the right use case of flag. So I don't know, Bogdan, you were like strongly kind of arguing against those feature flags, which I agree were misused. Do you think it's fine to use feature flags to opt out, of the agency client and the mediated connection here?
I mean, I guess, I don't know. Ultimately, maybe we should devise a plan of getting rid of those entirely.
Yeah, we do.
But like the feature flagging thing seems like an intermediate step towards that, where. But I guess that's more of the way I go about things, with ripping the band-aid right off. But I don't have a problem with it. Though I personally just kill them off, because it's kind of postponing, shoving this under the rug rather than addressing the real problem. If you
No, I
ask
mean,
me.
I agree, but and so we are heading there. Miro just removed the dependency from all the tests. It's just a matter of doing the work, and that might take some more time. Perhaps there's like
Right.
high priority tasks in the meantime. So yeah, just kind of a bandage, intermediate bandage until we get there. But it's definitely on a plan. I mean, this mediated stuff.
Fair enough.
It should be gone. And I'm looking forward for the day when we just delete it all, and the agency repo will be archived and deprecated, all the stuff. Okay, so I guess we might do that as to kind of lighten up the dependency tree for most of the consumers. And
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, I wasn't implying that I wanted to push that, but just a random passing thought.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good remark. Okay, in progress. So Miro said, mentioned, there's probably part 3 coming. Who knows if we get part 4, maybe even. There's test refactoring on the way, and well, we are preparing to remove VDR tools. Hopefully, optimistically hoping for the end of this month, we could maybe get rid of it completely. We'll see how that goes. Doing some internal testing on our side. And yeah, that brings us to the end of this meeting. It was quite a rich one, a lot richer than I originally expected, honestly, and longer too. So we have a few more minutes. Has this brought you any more thoughts and any more discussion points you would like to touch on, or shall we just wrap it up?
Not related to anything discussed, but I think I'm working on the issue credential and present proof V2 plan next week. So
Yeah,
contacting you guys and making questions and whatnot.
yeah. I'm gonna
Stay tuned.
actually put it here as kind of a plan. Well, you're not yet working on it, right? So I'll just put it as a plant. So
Yes.
V2, you're planning to start, I guess, well, I'll just put both. V2 for issuance and presentation protocols. Yeah, and yeah, that'll be a good step. For transparency, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a V3 eventually, and that's gonna be the accommodation for DITCOM V2.
Yeah.
Because DITCOM V2 handles the attachments a bit differently. So from what I can tell and from what I heard, it's probably gonna be V3, but it's essentially gonna be V2, but with accommodations for DITCOM V2. So this is gonna be still valuable. I mean, this is important step forward to start supporting different type of credentials potentially, other than uncred. I guess that's a main value proposition there.
Yeah, cool.
I have one other quick thing. Again, not related to anything in particular, but as everybody's probably noticed, we have like a lot of lints throughout the code base, like in the hundreds, and like it's kind of preventing some stuff or hindering some things here and there. For instance, in the message builders thing, I forgot using a thread ID somewhere, which is just an argument to the function, but you don't even notice an additional lint anymore next to the other hundreds. On the other hand, I'm an idiot. I missed it. On the other hand, it would have really helped to kind of have actually helpful lints that you would actually see. Now, this kind of thing is pretty, I don't necessarily know if this is something that should we do in like one go, or with each individual PR we could basically maybe like whatever falls into our lap to kind of fix and take care of lints as we go. Probably that would be easier as a workload for everyone, and would provide would come with much less conflicts down the line. I don't know.
It's a good point to bring up, and we had it on a kind of notes to-dos last week too, and the week before that. But yeah, it should be prioritized, I think. And I ran into the same same situation like you. I don't know what I was working on, but made some stupid mistake, and if the lints were not, there was not so many of them, I'll definitely the actual lint warning with a mistake I
Mhm.
made, some unwrap or what, didn't await for something. That would be actually
Yeah, it
super
just
useful.
wouldn't slip by.
It was confusing what's going on, you know, and it wasn't.
Mhm.
So just I guess question, yeah, how do we do this? And I know my thought now would be maybe let's kind of do it crate by crate to kind of minimize the some huge, I don't know, some conflicts because there's like war going here and there
Mhm.
around the tests, some refactoring. So maybe if we do it kind of crate by crate, that would be good. Would you be willing to kind of take I don't know, take this initiative, Bogdan, to kind of
Yeah,
drive
sure.
it, make those PRs and fix it up?
I was actually thinking about that, but I wanted to see what you guys think about it. So, like, pretty much like you said, there's the option of going crate by crate, or even, you know, at the more granular level, PR by PR, if you're working on something else and just like you're working on whatever, just some protocol. George is going to be working on, like, okay, that's new code, doesn't matter. I know you're refactoring the present proof protocol, right? So, in the state machine, so you might be fixing stuff regarding that as you're working on it, and whatever lints you encounter, not necessarily related to the code you're dealing with. Or we can go in a more full force approach and either do it on a crate level or workspace level, but probably the crate level is the best way to go about it. But yeah, I think it's come to the point where it's actually important, especially with all the changes that we're doing. Like I said, sometimes things just slip by, and having lints that you could actually rely on would save a lot of trouble and time.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's do
Okay, I
it.
can pick it up, yeah, and we can
Then
coordinate on what to start or what to go about, you know, to kind of minimize the conflicts that would arise.
I'll just put it in progress then, if that's fine. I take
Yeah,
it that
sure,
you, like
sure.
start working on it throughout the, I don't know, until the next meeting or something.
Mm-hmm.
Also linting, fix the lints. Okay. All right, I think that's that brings us the 0 time, end of our meeting. So if you have other points, we can take it on a Slack or perhaps next week, but I think we covered a lot. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.